The mirror didn't lie. I stood there, towel half on, toothbrush hanging out of my mouth, and all I could think was, that man looks like a stranger. Eyes puffy, cheeks sunken, confidence gone. Then I heard it. Her laugh. From the living room. Not from a show. Not from a call with her sister. No, this was the soft, breathy kind she used to reserve for our private moments. I froze, because I hadn't heard that sound in months. When I stepped out, she was curled up on the couch with her phone turned screen down, a half-empty wine glass in her hand, and that same practiced, "Oh, it's nothing" smirk on her lips. "You okay?" she asked like I was the one acting strange. And I wanted to scream, to cry, to throw that damn phone across the room. But instead, I just nodded. Like always. Because in this house, I'd become the ghost. She didn't see me anymore. Not the way she used to. I started noticing things I never wanted to. A different scent on her coat. Not her usual vanilla lotion, but something woody and masculine. New music playlists filled with songs she once called cringe. Deleted call logs. One day, I tried to hold her hand while we were watching a movie. She pulled away like I was some creepy stranger brushing her thigh on a train. I laughed it off. She didn't. The next morning, I woke up to her in the bathroom mirror applying makeup with more care than I'd seen in years. Winged eyeliner. The lipstick she said she outgrew. I asked if she had a meeting. She said, just felt like looking nice. But she didn't look at me once after saying it. That same day, I got the first message. From a number I didn't recognize. Just 4 words. You deserve better. A friend. No name. No explanation. And I should have ignored it. Should have assumed it was spam. But I didn't. Because deep down, I knew someone was trying to warn me. That night, I asked her directly. Not accusing. Just calm. Is there something you're not telling me? She stared at me. Not shocked. Not offended. Just blank. Like I'd asked her to explain the theory of relativity. What's that supposed to mean? I don't know. I feel like I'm not part of your world anymore. She got up, muttered, Jesus, Carter, and disappeared into the bedroom. 3 days later, she asked the question. Right after dinner. Right after another one of those long, quiet evenings filled with chewing and clinking forks and zero eye contact. She looked me dead in the face and said, "Why don't you want me anymore?" And I smiled. For the first time in weeks, I genuinely smiled. Because I'd been waiting for her to pretend like she was the victim. So I leaned back, looked her right in the eyes, and replied, "I don't want intimacy with you after your lover." She didn't blink, didn't flinch, just tightened her jaw. And that's when I knew she had no intention of denying it. What happened next? Well, let's just say the phone wasn't the only thing she dropped that night. She stared at me for a long time after I said it. No panic, no fake confusion, just silence, like she was trying to decide whether to lie or not bother. I expected her to deny it. I really did. I thought she'd laugh, call me insecure, maybe even cry. But all she said was, "You don't know what you're talking about," and walked to the bedroom. That's when I realized something terrifying. She didn't care if I did know. I sat there, alone at the dinner table, listening to the sound of her closet opening and shutting like nothing had happened. It hit me harder than any confession ever could. She had already moved on. From us, from our marriage, from the version of me that used to be enough. Later that night, she came out wearing the same robe she always wore when she wanted to be sweet. Like she thought throwing a little skin my way would reset everything. As if I was supposed to forget the lingering perfume, the late-night calls, and the missing warmth in her eyes. "You're being dramatic," she said. "We've been distant. Maybe I made some mistakes. But that's marriage. It's not all fireworks." I asked her point blank, "Who is he?" She didn't answer. Instead, she sat down across from me and asked me if I had someone else. Like this was a game of deflection. Like she needed me to be guilty, too, so we could pretend to be even. I shook my head and said, "No, Rosalind. I've just been trying to love a version of you that doesn't exist anymore." She rolled her eyes. "You always say stuff like that. So dramatic, so self-pitying. Maybe if you acted like a man instead of a hurt puppy, we'd still be connected." That one stung. I mean, I get it. I'm not perfect. I work a basic job. I don't have six-pack abs or some six-figure salary. But I was loyal. I gave her everything. My time, my support, my trust. And now I was being blamed for not being man enough after she emotionally walked out months ago. Still, I didn't raise my voice. I didn't yell or threaten or storm off. I just looked at her and said, "I think you've already chosen him." She didn't deny it. She just sighed and said, "Can we not do this tonight?" But I couldn't just switch it off. The image of her with someone else, laughing, touching, sharing things she once only shared with me, it wouldn't leave my head. I started sleeping on the couch, not because she asked me to, but because I couldn't stand the smell of her shampoo anymore. It used to be comforting. Now it felt like a lie. Days passed. We didn't fight, didn't talk. We became strangers living in the same house. Her phone still lit up late at night. I stopped asking who it was. She stopped pretending to care if I noticed. And then came the envelope. A plain white envelope slid under our front door one Saturday morning. No stamp. No name. Inside, a single photo. Her. In a car. With him. Laughing. His hand on her thigh. That was the moment I realized someone wanted me to know. Someone on the inside. And I had no idea just how deep it went. I stared at that photo for at least 20 minutes before I could breathe again. It wasn't even graphic. Just a moment. A moment between two people who clearly didn't care if they were caught. Her smile was different. It wasn't the polite, strained smile she gave me when I asked if she wanted to watch something together. It wasn't the forced grin she wore during family dinners. This was something else. It was soft, natural, free. She hadn't smiled like that at me in years. And the guy? Dean, I assumed. Beard. Smug sunglasses. His hand wasn't just resting on her thigh. It was claiming her, like I had already been erased. I didn't confront her right away. Instead, I waited. Watched. Studied her like a stranger in my own house. I started noticing every pattern. When she went to the store, when she claimed she needed space, how often she took long walks without breaking a sweat. So I did something I swore I'd never do. I followed her. She left one Thursday evening around 6:30, wearing the same stupid coat she always said was too warm for errands. I waited 10 minutes. Then I grabbed my keys and followed at a distance. I didn't even have a plan, no confrontation, no speech prepared. I just had to know. She drove to a strip mall parking lot and parked in the far back row. No shopping bags. No quick stops. She just sat there, on her phone. 10 minutes later, a dark gray Jeep pulled in 2 spots away. He didn't even try to hide it. Just got out, walked to her car, opened the passenger door, and kissed her like it was the most normal thing in the world. I could have driven away. I probably should have. But instead I stayed. Sat there gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. I wanted to scream. To rip the door open. To drag him out and ask what he had that I didn't. But I didn't move. She looked so relaxed next to him. Not anxious. Not guilty. Just gone. Like I'd never even existed in her world. When they drove off together, I didn't follow. I just sat there, staring at the empty parking space, asking myself how long I'd been living in someone else's story. When I got home, I didn't speak to her. I didn't even look at her. And she didn't ask why. I think she assumed I already knew. Or worse, she didn't care if I did. That weekend, I stayed silent. Not to punish her, but because there was nothing left to say. She walked around the house like it was a hotel lobby, brushing past me like I was luggage in the hallway. No eye contact. No effort. Then, Sunday morning, she sat across from me with coffee in her hand and said, "You're acting weird." Weird? I laughed. You think this is weird? You've been passive-aggressive for weeks, Carter. I took a deep breath and slid the photo across the table. She didn't touch it. Just looked at it, blinked slowly, and then looked at me. "Who gave this to you?" she asked. That was her first reaction. Not guilt. Not denial. Just suspicion. "I don't know," I replied. "But I'm guessing that's not your cousin." She didn't even try to make up a lie. She leaned back in her chair and said, "This isn't how I wanted it to come out." And just like that, everything inside me shattered. She said it so calmly. This isn't how I wanted it to come out. Like she was disappointed in how I found out. Not that it happened at all. Not sorry. Not ashamed. Just inconvenienced. I just stared at her. So it's true. She didn't nod. Didn't cry. She just took a sip of her coffee like we were talking about the weather. "His name's not Dean, by the way," she finally said, like she was doing me a favor. "It's Marcus." Marcus. I actually laughed. Out loud. Like some broken sitcom character. "So I was wrong about everything, huh?" She looked annoyed. "You weren't supposed to see that photo. I was going to tell you eventually." "Eventually?" I repeated. "You've been disappearing for months. Lying to my face. Sleeping next to me like it meant nothing. And your plan was just, what? Keep both of us around until it felt right?" She didn't answer. Just stood up, took her mug to the sink, and started rinsing it out like we hadn't just detonated our marriage on a Sunday morning. I don't even remember standing up. I just remember walking into the bedroom, grabbing my jacket, and slamming the door on my way out. I didn't have a destination. I just drove. Gas station. Empty parking lot. Side streets. Anywhere that didn't smell like her perfume. That night, I stayed in my car until it got too cold. I didn't want to go back. I didn't want to see her, or hear her voice, or pretend to sleep while she texted him. But I also didn't have anywhere else to go. I couldn't crash at my brother's. He was out of town, and I wasn't ready to tell anyone. Not yet. The shame was too fresh. Too raw. When I finally walked through the door around midnight, the lights were off. She had left a blanket on the couch like some kind of peace offering, and taped to it a note. I think we need to talk tomorrow. I'll sleep in the other room. Not I'm sorry. Not let's fix this. Just logistics. Room assignments. Like we were divorced roommates co-parenting a cat. I didn't sleep. I just laid there under the blanket she'd left, wondering how I became this version of myself. The one that got cheated on and thanked her for leaving the room. The one that stayed. And the worst part? A small, pathetic voice in the back of my head still whispered, maybe she'll change her mind. Maybe she'll pick you. I hated that voice. The next morning, I didn't get the talk she promised. She left early, like always, and didn't answer when I texted, "We need to finish this." But what happened that afternoon? That changed everything. I got a knock on the door. A woman stood there, maybe late 30s, dressed sharp, dark lipstick, eyes full of quiet fury. "You don't know me," she said. "But I know Marcus, and I know he's been sleeping with your wife." I blinked, stunned. She nodded slowly, then added, "I'm his fiancé." That's when the cracks in her story, and Rosalind's affair, started to widen into something darker. Something messier. Because Rosalind hadn't just betrayed me. She was helping Marcus betray someone else too. I didn't know what to say to her at first. Marcus's fiancé. I just stood there holding the door, my brain trying to catch up. She wasn't crying. She wasn't yelling. She looked like someone who had spent the entire night rehearsing her words in the mirror and was finally ready to use them. She introduced herself as Valerie. I didn't want to come here. I've been putting it off for weeks. But last night, I found their texts. All of them. "And your wife?" She knew about me. I felt my stomach drop. She said what? I asked. Valerie took out her phone, showed me a message thread where Rosalind literally texted Marcus. "You need to tell her before the wedding. I'm tired of sneaking around like we're doing something wrong." Doing something wrong. Like marriage was optional. Like I was just an inconvenience. Like Valerie was the side character in their story. We sat down at the kitchen table, two strangers connected by the same betrayal. Valerie told me they'd been engaged for 6 months. She and Marcus were supposed to move to Arizona in the spring. He had apparently been pulling away for a while, but she thought it was cold feet. She never suspected another woman, let alone my wife. It was surreal. Hearing someone else talk about your spouse like they were a villain in their story, too. "I'm not here to fight," Valerie said. "I just wanted you to know who she is. What she's really been doing." I asked her what she planned to do next. She looked me dead in the eyes and said, "I'm going to ruin him." I believed her. After she left, I sat in the silence of my kitchen, staring at the photo again. The way Marcus had touched her. The way she looked at him. And now I knew. She wasn't just cheating. She was actively participating in someone else's deception, too. She wasn't caught in something. She was choosing this. When Rosalind came home that evening, she looked tired. Not emotionally. Just inconvenienced. She barely said a word to me as she dropped her bag, took off her shoes, and walked past me. "You're quiet," she said, not even turning around. "I had a visitor today." She froze. I watched her back stiffen. Slowly, she turned around and met my eyes. I could see it all in her face, recognition, annoyance, maybe even panic. But she didn't say anything. "Valerie stopped by? Marcus's fiancé." Now she blinked. That word hit her differently. "Fiancé. She knows," I continued. "About everything. About you. About the texts." She showed me. "She knows." Rosalind sat down like her legs gave out, covered her mouth with her hand. Not crying. Not apologizing. Just stunned. And finally, after a long pause, she whispered, "I didn't think she'd find out." That was it. No I'm sorry, no remorse. Just damage control. "You didn't think I'd find out either," I said, standing up. She looked at me with wide, tired eyes. "So what now?" "What now?" I didn't even know. I was still sleeping on the couch. She was still in the house. We were still pretending life hadn't imploded. And now, the other woman in this triangle was threatening to detonate it from the outside. But that night, something changed in me. I wasn't just heartbroken anymore. I was done being the quiet one. Done being the ghost in my own marriage. I pulled out my phone, opened the same hidden folder where I had kept the photo from the envelope, and added the screenshots Valerie sent me. If Rosalind wanted to play dirty, I was finally ready to stop playing nice. I didn't sleep that night, not out of sadness, but because my mind wouldn't shut off. For weeks, I'd been trapped in some emotional purgatory, waiting for her to feel bad, waiting for an apology that was never coming. But Valerie's visit had flipped a switch. I wasn't sitting in the dark anymore. I was watching the pieces, all of them, fall into place. And suddenly, I realized I had leverage. Not just a photo, not just a story. I had proof. Screenshots, messages, times, locations. Enough to destroy whatever fantasy Rosalind had built with Marcus, and maybe more. The next morning, she acted like nothing happened. She made herself tea, tied her hair up in a bun like she always did on lazy Saturdays, and scrolled on her phone as if we weren't living in the ruins of our marriage. I didn't say a word to her, but I texted Valerie. I want to meet. In person. Just us. I have an idea. She agreed instantly. We met at a little bakery 2 towns over, neutral territory. She looked more composed this time, like someone who had already made peace with blowing up her own life. She slid a folder across the table. These are his financial records. I dug around. We have overlap in some accounts. He's been reckless. I opened it. Credit card statements, hotel bookings, even a business account Rosalind had helped him set up through some shell operation, probably to fund their meetups without tripping flags. He's sloppy, she said. Wants to play the part of a big man, but he's cheap. Greedy. That's why he clung to both of us. 2 safety nets. I was stunned. You did all this in a week? She smiled bitterly. Anger's a hell of a motivator. I told her my plan. It wasn't loud. It wasn't messy. It was quiet. Precise. If Rosalind wanted a fresh start with Marcus, we'd make sure it came with consequences. Not revenge for the sake of pain, but a reminder that deception has weight, that it lingers. Valerie would confront Marcus with the financial fraud. Not to report it, yet, but to scare him. To show him she could bury him if she wanted. Meanwhile, I'd confront Rosalind not with accusations, but facts. Records. Timelines. Let her see that I knew everything. That she wasn't just a bad wife. She was complicit in something bigger. I wanted her to feel the pressure. That night, back at the house, she was in the kitchen reheating leftovers. I walked in, calm as ever, and placed a small flash drive on the counter. She stared at it. What's that? She asked. Everything, I said. She picked it up, but didn't plug it in. Just looked at me like I'd spoken another language. Why are you doing this? You asked me the other day, what now? This is what? Still no apology. Still no remorse. Just fear. The quiet, creeping kind. I don't want a war, Carter, she said. Her voice dropped for the first time in weeks. Not manipulative. Just careful. Good, I replied. Then don't make one. She took the flash drive and walked out of the kitchen. I don't know if she watched it. I don't know if she needed to. Maybe she just knew what was on it. Maybe she realized the damage had already been done. And I realized something too. I didn't want her back. Not anymore. I wanted her to live in the truth she created. The silence between us became louder than any argument we ever had. After I handed her the flash drive, Rosalind stopped trying to spin anything. She didn't yell, didn't cry. She just moved through the house like it wasn't hers anymore. And in a way, it wasn't. It was a crime scene now, and we were both standing in the middle of it, pretending we hadn't pulled the trigger. She stayed in the guest room for 2 nights. I know because I could hear her pacing. Not sleeping. Not even trying to. The day after that, she left a note on the table. We need to decide how to do this. It's not just about us. I stared at that one line for 10 minutes, trying to figure out what she meant. And then it hit me. She was talking about the house. About logistics. About how to dismantle the last 7 years like they were just a spreadsheet to sort through. I didn't write back. I printed a list of every transaction tied to Marcus's dummy account. The one she had helped open. The one they thought no one would notice. I left it on the table with no explanation. That evening, she barely looked at me. But her hands shook when she picked up the papers. And then she said the one thing I didn't expect. Are you going to take this to the police? I didn't say anything. I just kept eating dinner. Slowly. like it was any other Tuesday. She sat across from me for a while, not touching her food, just staring at the papers. I didn't know he was using it that way, she said. I looked up, but you knew it was wrong. She didn't deny it. Then, like it suddenly mattered, she whispered, "You're not going to ruin me, are you?" I let out a breath. "Rosalind, I'm not here to ruin you. You did that yourself. I just want you to understand what you did." "And Marcus?" she asked. I smiled, just enough for her to notice. "He's not your problem anymore." What I didn't tell her was that Valerie had already confronted him. Not publicly yet, but enough to make him panic. Enough to make him send Rosalind a frantic message at 1:13 a.m. that night, begging her not to talk, not to send anything, not to say a word to anyone. I saw it on her phone. She forgot to mute it. The screen lit up while she was in the bathroom. I didn't open the message. I didn't need to. The first line was visible in the preview. "They're going to come after me. You have to help me, Roz." That's what she was to him. Roz. Some version of herself she invented just for him. One she never let me see. The next morning, she packed a bag. Said she was going to her sister's for a while. She didn't say goodbye. She didn't ask if I'd be okay. She just said, "Don't do anything reckless." But what she didn't know was that I already had. The moment she walked out, I opened a private folder I'd kept for years. Backups, copies of documents, a full timeline, phone records, GPS data, everything I had held on to, not out of obsession, but instinct. I emailed them to myself. Then, without hesitation, I sent a zip folder to an address Valerie had given me. It wasn't revenge. It was release. Rosalind had left to protect herself, but she had no idea the one person she thought would cover for her, me, was finally done playing the role of her shield. The next time she tried to come home, she was going to find everything different. 3 days passed. No calls, no texts, no dramatic return. I thought she might come back, maybe try to negotiate, smooth things over like she always did when the consequences finally caught up with her. But silence held. And for once, I didn't chase it. The house was quiet. Still, I kept expecting to hear the sound of her keys in the lock, her voice shouting from the hall, something. But instead, all I got was peace. Unfamiliar, awkward peace, but peace nonetheless. I started cleaning. Not just the dishes and floors, but everything. I cleared out the bedroom closet, donated bags of her things, tossed out the perfume bottles I used to hate smelling on her coat, scrubbed the mirrors she used to hog every morning. And the more I cleaned, the lighter I felt, like I was physically scrubbing her out of my space, my air, my skin. Valerie texted me the next day. Short message. He confessed everything. "I'm leaving next week. Thank you for helping me see it." That was it. No drama. Just two survivors of the same wreckage, parting ways with mutual respect. No need to keep dragging it out. Then came the email from Rosalind. Subject line, "I understand now." She didn't beg. She didn't accuse. She didn't even try to win me back. Just a long, honest message. She said she had been angry at life, at herself, at how small and suffocating stability started to feel. She admitted she used Marcus to escape, not from me, but from the version of herself she didn't want to be anymore. "I thought I needed excitement," she wrote, "but I confused secrecy with passion. That's on me." She ended with a quiet line that I'll never forget. "You deserved someone who didn't treat love like a backup plan." And for the first time since everything fell apart, I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I didn't feel empty. I felt free. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. Sometimes closure isn't a conversation, it's a decision. I'd already made mine. It's been 6 weeks now. I moved into a smaller apartment across town. Nothing fancy, just mine. I picked out a new couch, bought Real curtains. I even started cooking again, badly, but still. It feels like living for the first time in years. I'm not saying I'm healed, but I'm healing. I smile more. I breathe deeper. I wake up without dread in my chest. The other day, I passed by a bookstore and saw a sign. "You can't rewrite the beginning, but you can choose the next chapter." So I walked in, bought a journal, wrote one sentence on the first page. She asked me why I didn't want her anymore. Now I finally understand. I wanted myself back.